ready?
Got open man. DJ Moore. End zone. Touchdown. Touchdown Bears.
I am Jeff Joniak.
Blitz is on. Down he goes. Oscar.
What was it like playing for Coach Ditka?
I don't want to answer any questions like that.
Pressure coming. He's in big trouble. Down he goes. Montez Sweat.
And
Now, Bears Etc. brought to you by Miller Lite with the voices of the Bears, Jeff Joniak and Tom Thayer.
It's mock draft mania right now. So many opinions, so many ideas, so much uncertainty, and we tackle it all with you here on episode number 140 of the Bears Etc. podcast with Super Bowl winning Bears guard Tom Thayer. I'm Jeff Joniak. We are brought to you by Miller Lite, and we kick off this week's program with our special guest, ESPN insider and analyst Field Yates. Catch him at Field Yates on X, youtube.com/@ESPN NFL. He is all things classy, all things NFL. And in our business, that's high praise, Field, because everybody I talk to, classy. Nicest guy in the business. So thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for that great introduction, and thanks for having me on, guys. I'm really looking forward to talking all things, well, doesn't have to be just Bears, but I imagine lots of things Bears and pick number 10 overall is they've got one of the more exciting outlooks right now. 3 picks in the top 41 and a roster that I think is ready to take off.
All right. Why do you feel it's ready to take off?
Well, I think that the quarterback is in place, and it's a transition, no doubt, as Caleb Williams learned last year, first year going from the college life to the NFL life. But I do feel as though there is much more harmony right now between the talent in place and the coaching staff to lead that talent in place. You know, Ben Johnson, inarguably one of the best play callers that we have seen over the past at least half decade, and maybe even further back than that. And it feels like cohesion he has with Caleb Williams is going to go a long way to allowing this roster to take a big step forward. And then on top of that, not that the Bears can't address the offensive line further, but feeling a lot more confident about the starting 5 at minimum right now than we did at this time last year along the offensive line makes me feel as though a big jump is in place. And then on defense, the defense actually was okay for much of last year, maybe even better than okay for much of last year. It's just harder to see that effort defensively when your offense is still figuring things out for significant portions of the season. So the pieces in place, the coaching staff in place, an opportunity to compete in this NFC North.
So, Field, I was drafted 4 years before you were born, 1983 draft. In the 1983 draft, that there was a lot of guys that were set in stone. You know, Elway was going to go number 1. You know, Bruce Matthews and Jimbo Cover and all these guys and so on and so forth. So now we have a template of success, Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator, play caller. When you look at a position out there that the Bears still need to run that type of offense that Ben's familiar with in Detroit. We saw Jahmyr Gibbs. We saw Laporta. We saw the growth and the development of those types of star players. What do you project for Ben Johnson as much as the Bears?
You know, Ryan Poles talked about this after they had made the trade for Jonah Jackson and Joe Thuney and then signed Drew Dahlman, is that what they had accomplished was they had really opened the board up at number 10, right? If you don't make all of those moves or don't make 2 out of those 3 moves, we might be sitting here saying to ourselves, all right, Bears are taking a tackle or taking a guard at 10. It's a lock. You might as well put it in Sharpie. But because of the fact that if they played a game tomorrow and Braxton Jones is fully recovered from that ankle surgery, this is a team that has its starting 5 penciled in. So if the board falls in a way that Ashton Jeanty or Tyler Warren or even Will Campbell is available, the Bears can have a thoughtful conversation about what direction they want to turn. You know, Ashton Jeanty, I think, is going to end up drawing comparisons to one of the Lions running backs because of the fact that people think of it as a 1-2 punch, and that has sort of been associated with Ben Johnson. I think they had significant success last year, not just because those 2 players and David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs are talented, but also because rarely was it ever, we need just one of you to tote the rock entirely. Up until Monty got hurt last year, this was a nice even split between these 2 backs. I think Jeanty more resembles David Montgomery than he does Jahmyr Gibbs. which isn't to say that he's not an awesome player as well. I just think if you're kind of assign him as one of those two types of backs more than the other, he probably reminds me more of Monty with the power and the contact balance. Probably the most intriguing guy, number 10 for me, is Tyler Warren, only because it's a position where there aren't a ton of difference makers in the NFL. There's some very good tight ends right now, but the number of guys that can legitimately be the number one passing game option on an offense that defense feels threatened by is pretty narrow. I mean, Brock Bowers in Las Vegas hasn't even reached the peak of his powers, and he's certainly one of them, to a degree. Still Travis Kelce, but it's George Kittle, it's Trey McBride. The list is not long. Tyler Warren's part of that list. And that isn't to say that he immediately leapfrogs Rome Odunze or DJ Moore, but he's the kind of guy that if Ben Johnson wants to innovate anything under the sun that involves a tight end, Tyler Warren has the skill set to allow him to do exactly that.
This year, Ben Johnson is going to call 12 outdoor games. Yeah. Last year, being in Detroit and being in Minnesota and all the other indoor facilities, I think you can have a different approach because you're going to have perfect conditions. When you think about an outdoor tight end like Tyler Warren, an outdoor back like Genty, do you take any of those into account when you're thinking about the players that could be there at 10?
I think it's part of the equation. It's definitely more prominent when we're evaluating the quarterbacks, right? Not that hand size is the end all be all, but I'm just using that as an example where if you're playing in bad weather and you find a quarterback with smaller hands, how can that impact the quarterback's ability to be, secure with the football? It's part of the equation to a degree as far as the prospects are concerned. But really it just makes me think about what kind of football do the Bears want to play now with Ben Johnson. I remember that game in Chicago last year when Ben was still coaching up the Lions, the game in which they ran the fake trip play where Jared Goff ends up throwing the touchdown pass. And that was a cold day, right? I remember Goff being long sleeved and gloves on and all that. So Ben, I think, has shown himself that even when the weather is not ideal, there's still going to be enough innovation here that they're going to put an emphasis on playmakers. And Tyler Warren has a lot of great things. One thing that you can't question about Tyler Warren is that the ball and him are a match made in heaven. Very natural playmaker. This past season, we saw him run as a Wildcat quarterback from Penn State. If anybody watched the USC game last year in which he had 17 catches, Tyler Warren had one of these unbelievable touchdown grabs where he's basically sprawling over a USC defensive player. He began the play as the center on that play. He actually handled a shotgun snap. So just a natural, innovative mover that I think would have a lot of appeal to Ben Johnson at a position where there just aren't that many guys that have the same level of upside.
Well, he hangs out with Mel Kiper Jr., the NFL draft guru, and they just did a 3-round mock draft yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, for ESPN. Right. And you guys alternated picks. Kiper was the Bears pick at 10. He did choose Tyler Warren. Then you chose at number 39, Trayvon Henderson, the running back of Ohio State. Then you chose Nick Scorton at 41 from Texas A&M, while Kiper picked Ariante Ursery from Minnesota at tackle at number 72. Before we go further in your reaction to those, the Miller Lite Chicago Bears draft party is back at Soldier Field on April 24th. Celebrate our number 10 pick and enjoy live draft coverage and analysis, on-field activities, a locker room tour, a closeout sale, and more. Buy tickets now at chicagobears.com/draft. So, in analyzing those, and if you happen to have the 10th pick instead, would you also have chosen Tyler Warren?
Based off the way that the board fell, I would have gone with Tyler Warren as well. Genty not being on the board, I think those two. I mean, I don't have a definitive answer right now on if both Ashton Genty and Tyler Warren are available. Part of the reason why I don't have a definitive answer is I don't think that's going to be the case. I think if it's possible one of the two makes it there, I don't think it's likely that both of them make it to number 10 overall. But moving forward to 39 and 41, Trayvon Henderson is juice. This guy is electric. He is very, very capable in the passing game, an explosive runner as well. I don't know if this sounds like not great praise, but I am intending it as such. A few years ago when Tony Pollard broke out for the Dallas Cowboys, and they did a remarkable job of maximizing him as a playmaker on the perimeter and some of these tosses and sweeps and even, design passes to Tony Pollard really allowed him to become this excellent play in space player. Henderson has some between the tackles ability, but one of the great benefits he had this past year was playing with Quinshon Judkins, who transferred from Ole Miss to Ohio State for one season. They were thunder and lightning, with Judkins being more the thunder, Henderson being more the lightning. I thought he was great both of them were great this past year, but Henderson would give the Bears kind of like microwavable instant offense because he's a threat every time the football's in his hands. Nick Scorton, probably a familiar player to some in Big Ten country out there in Chicago. He was at Purdue for a pair of seasons 2 years ago, so 2023. He actually led the Big Ten in sacks. He had a lesser year this year in the sack department, just 4.5 at Texas A&M. But this guy has an incredibly advanced arsenal of rush moves. He's just a big, powerful three-down player because he sets an edge now. He is unafraid to meet force with force at the point of attack. We've talked a lot about Will Campbell, and I'm sure if he's on the board at number 10, he'd be a consideration for the Bears. And one of the big question marks surrounding Will has been arm length. Does he have the requisite length to handle NFL pass rushers? I thought it rarely showed up for Will at the college level. I thought Nick Scorton, though, was one of the guys that gave him all he could handle because Nick's got this advanced arsenal that I mentioned earlier. He can beat you with speed or explosion coming around the corner. He can beat you with power kind of running through you. And then he's got a nasty spin move to work inside as well. So a pretty complete player who, if he had maybe a couple more inches on him, we'd be talking about as maybe a top 20 to 25 lock.
Let's not ignore Dennis Allen, because when you talk about the Bears defensive line, even though they did bring in a couple of guys, Grady Jarrett being one of them, you can't ignore the role and the importance of the three technique inside this defense. Who is that guy for you? And I know Mason Graham has talked about it a lot at the top of the boards, but who is that guy for you that could possibly fall to the Bears in that second round, even 10th, if he was that attractive?
Yeah, I think Mason Graham's probably the only one that I would say if he's there at number 10, I'm making the selection there. As we look at 39, though, and he ended up going higher than this by quite a bit, but he's a wide range player. Walter Nolan from Ole Miss is just a fascinating player, fascinating prospect. He can be really as good as he wants to be. He came out of high school as, one of the number one recruits in the country. He ended up at Texas A&M for a couple of years and then transferred to Ole Miss, which we need to get used to that, by the way, now. Like, guys playing at multiple schools is just sort of the norm. Maybe half the guys that I've graded in this year's class, or 40%, were multi-school players. Nolan had 6.5 sacks this past year. He absolutely can destroy people with his power. He's a very, very disruptive pass rusher. If the Bears or any team is going to allow him to just be a single gap penetrator and rush up the field, he'll thrive in the NFL. I had him going 17th in the mock to Cincinnati, but one of the themes of this year's draft class is some player or some team may view a player as a top 20 guy, and another team may say he's closer to 40 for us. A lot of variance as opposed to last year, where I really felt like the top of the board was pretty saturated with guys that, I felt like the high-end outcome for Rome Odunze was like 5th or 6th overall. The low-end outcome was no worse than number 9 overall. It ended up playing out that way. There's not nearly as many players with narrow ranges this year as there were last year.
I got a question about something that Tom and I discussed the other day off the air, but personally, and maybe I'm wrong, I just don't remember, but I don't recall such a wide range of opinions from quoted scouts, unnamed personnel guys, NFL analysts that are out there like yourself on positional certainty of the offensive line. We got guards that should be tackles. We got tackles should be guards that could be centers, tackles to be centers. Do you agree? In all your analysis, you started at ESPN in 2012. I don't recall.
I think that's a correct assessment of it. I think that what it comes down to, this has been my process at least this year, is you just got to pick a spot for guys. And you got to decide, so if it's a tackle who you project guard, why are you doing that? Is it because of the arm length? Is it because of the body mass? There's a guy, Marcus Bowe from Purdue, another Big Ten guy who I think is a guard or center because he's 306 pounds. I just don't see that many right tackles or left tackles at 306 pounds because of the sheer mass. Whereas Will Campbell, again, highly discussed player, is he a guard, is he a tackle? I think he's a tackle. I don't care about the 32 and 5/8 inch arms because the tape's too good. So to me, it is really just planting your flag on a player at a specific position because you have conviction for why that spot makes sense. But make no mistake about it, there is a ton of variance based off, basically based off of whoever you talk to on a given day about a specific player.
Field, maybe this is off the radar completely, but you have a guy like Trey Hendrickson who is still out there. Could his name factor in the draft if there's a trade, if there's someone that you covet up there that maybe he's part of a deal, or are we talking about him in a month or two?
I think it's possible the draft creates some action for this reason. If Cincinnati is going to trade Trey Hendrickson, and that's still an if, the big thing about Cincinnati in doing so is they're going to want capital this year, right? They're not going to want to trade Trey Hendrickson, which makes them decidedly worse for a 2026 pick because they don't get to reap the benefits for a full season. So a la A.J. Brown a few years ago in the draft, and every year there are a couple guys whose names float right around the draft itself. Trey Hendrickson is probably amongst the most natural candidates to consider as a possible trade name in the next 7 to 10 days. I don't know that I would bet on it per se, but you can imagine Cincinnati will be at least getting calls from teams to say, I know there's no deal done yet with Trey. Does that mean that if we offer up, insert trade package here, we could at least have a conversation about it?
We're brought to you by PNC, official bank of the Bears. We'll let you go, but I want to remind everybody, your excellence, but it all started, if I'm not mistaken, you were pulled out of a crowd at a New England Patriots rookie minicamp to be a ball boy in high school, and this is where it all started?
Yeah, the first ever exposure to the NFL life was being a ball boy at a Patriots rookie minicamp, and I got tackled pretty good. It's all good. I survived. I showed a little bit of toughness, not too much, and that was how it all started, and some fun pit stops along the way, and now here we are at ESPN talking BP legends.
And working with Ryan Poles in Kansas City at a time, and that's right.
Yep, I knew him when. I knew at the time he was bound for a GM career, so I always loved watching his success personally and hoping that the Bears have a ton of wins this year as well. And I do have a lot of confidence in not just the person he is, the GM he is. And I do believe this is a big breakthrough year for the Bears.
Appreciate you very much. Thank you so much in this busy time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Field.
He actually was a football player, too. Let's not forget that. He played at Wesleyan University and lacrosse.
Safety. Yeah.
He was a safety, but really wanted to be in football and got involved with the Patriots in high school. He worked there for several years, then college, then the Chiefs, worked with Todd Haley when he was the head coach of the Chiefs. He was assistant to head coach, which is now a popular position in the NFL. Maybe that was one of the rare ones at that time. He was charting defensive plays. So just how he presents himself, he's always optimistically powerful. He's just got a presence about him. I really appreciate his work.
Yeah, the thing about it is that we were talking the other day, I was watching The Life of Mike Dick on TV, and you look in the background when he was playing for Coach George Halas, and all the coaches on the sideline, there is only a few of them, but they are all football guys. Now the responsibility of the coaching staff has expanded to so many roles that you have guys that create different niches or kind of carve out what their interest is in football. And it's not all the X's and O's of tackling and blocking. A lot of it has to do with the analytic studies and all the other different elements and segments that put together a football team nowadays. So it doesn't surprise me. And if you're that passionate about this sport, then there is a spot for you.
Hey, Bears fans, Steinhoffels is a proud partner of the Chicago Bears and now open in Orland Park. Steinhoffels is Chicagoland's furniture and mattress leader with the largest selection to fit every style and budget and is 100% employee-owned. Shop in-store and online at steinhoffels.com. It's now official. The Bears announcing Kyler Gordon. The first pick of the Ryan Poles era. He was a second-round pick. They did not have a first pick that year, but now the highest-paid nickel corner in the NFL, Tommy. 3 years, $40 million, $31.25 guaranteed. He'll get another bite of the apple if all goes well. Spider-Man wearing that number 6 proudly. One of my favorite Bears players because of the style by which he plays and the attitude he carries. Love it.
Yeah, we talk about the different emergences of people on coaching staffs. Then you talk about the emergence of the nickel cornerback and the importance and their role they have on a football team today. It is no defensive line, linebacker, defensive back. They have an equally important role as a starter as any position on the football team. And I think Kyler Gordon has proved to this organization how much the sport means to him, how much he means to the team. You always use the word deployable, and from the line of scrimmage to the defensive backfield, he can be put in place anywhere. So I'm super excited for that kid, man. I love his energy. I love his excitement. He does things in full pads that I never thought could be done, talking about front flips on his way to being introduced as a starter. So I'm super happy for him and his accomplishments so far.
We're also starting to see the locker room get rewarded for those players that have a future with the Bears. So you got the extensions. You got Jalen Johnson last offseason. You had Cole Kmet a couple years ago. You had Andrew Billings a couple years ago. Players like that player. Andrew Billings carries a very big impact in that locker room. DJ Moore was extended as well last summer. So these are significant signs that things are moving in a certain direction, Tom, in Chicago. So these are very important signings.
It's a positive reflection inside the locker room, because if you're a guy that's been brought to the Bears or you're a homegrown guy from the day that you were drafted, then you have an opportunity to earn quite a living if you do everything that's required of you, asked of you, and you make those incremental improvements throughout the course of your career. So I just think that when you see a guy like Kyler Gordon walking into the locker room and Cole and all the other guys, it's just a positive reflection to what the capabilities are for you if you do what's required of you.
Are aches, pains, or injuries keeping you on the sidelines? Well, Athletico's movement experts are here to help you turn your setbacks into comebacks and create a personalized game plan for your recovery with no prescription or referral needed. Athletico Physical Therapy is where your comeback story begins. Athletico, proud to be the official physical therapy partner of the Chicago Bears. So, as you've been listening and you've been following all these mock drafts from everywhere, and I don't know where you're going to place your weight, like which analysts do you listen to the most, for example? I'm not asking you to, but, there's certain guys that I just lean towards. But when you weigh that 10th pick, should they keep that pick? Because there has not been a first-round trade yet. There may not be until draft night, if any, but I have a suspicion there will be. But when you're in the top 10, I think the belief is you kind of, especially top 5, but top 10, you kind of weigh the premium spots, right? You're talking about left tackle. You're talking about edge rusher. You're talking about an impact 3 technique. You're talking about cornerback. You're talking about quarterback. But are you open to the concept of, hey, certain players at certain positions, like tight end, like running back, like wide receiver, sometimes you invest in those spots because they just happen to be the best player rated on your board regardless of position?
In the fantasy world of draft, if you have a player that's designated your guy and he's there, then you run to the podium. However, this year, unlike any other year, I think the most important device in the draft room is going to be the telephone. Because, Jeff, my phone is on. I'm working the phone. I think we saw a behind-the-scenes shot of the draft room last year when they were talking about Jeff King making a deal, passing it to Ryan Poles, and maybe it was for Austin Booker. I'm not sure who it was for. However, this year, it's the most complicated draft I've ever looked at. And I just think that my phone is going to be on until the last second. And if someone comes up there and tries to and makes me a deal that I get a number of picks and I still think my guy is going to be down, wherever that pick is extended to me, I'm going to talk. I'm negotiating. My deals are open. So that's the way I'm looking at this draft.
And then at number 10, are you okay? Like I alluded to, if it's if whatever the league calls a premium position, the ones that get paid the most, if it's not one of those positions, are you still okay with it?
100%.
Yeah. So am I.
If Ryan Poles feels strong about the player that he has designated that fits into a role at that 10th pick, and they come in here and they start creating competitiveness or improvement or whatever it is at whatever position he's thinking about, be positive and move forward.
The way Field Yates described some of those players, and I started to think about and digest what he's saying with what is already in place, especially offensively, it got me really excited. I got to be honest.
To me, I think more about Ben Johnson because, there is a template of success in culture change, in offensive profitability, playing at home and playing on the road equally as well.
Those questions they were great. Those are great insight.
The thing about it is the Ty Warren pick. Listen, you see what he did with Laporta immediately in Detroit. You think of Jahmyr Gibbs and what he did with the 1-2 punch in the backfield. You look at what their offensive line did for really the alpha male status of that locker room. What Hutchinson did, so I look at Ben, I look at his example and I take, a lot of his advice and suggestions going into this draft as much as anybody.
Thank you to our partners, CDW and Lenovo, who make amazing happen. Learn more at cdw.com/Lenovo. Recently, Ryan was on ESPN Sports Center and they asked him to describe the kind of player he's looking for in the first round. He used one word: toughness. And that then was added on. We're looking to establish an identity to kick this thing off and really get this team going in the right direction. I don't care what position you play. If you bring that attitude of toughness and the physicality that this team coaching staff has been talking about, this hair on fire approach to what the Bears want to be, again, I don't think anyone should really wring their hands or gnash their teeth about what position that player plays. I really listen, if they hadn't done anything on the offensive line in free agency or anything in the offseason, I'd be concerned. Yeah, you got to just be narrowcast. But no, I'm open to anything right now. I really am.
All right, I'm going to guarantee you something for the first time in my football life. I can guarantee you they're not going to draft a quarterback in the first round.
Yes, that's right.
But Caleb Williams has put a display of toughness on the record that is admirable by everybody who watches the sport of football. But when you're talking about toughness in the other positions, anybody can be that character. And toughness is an essential to play the sport at the level and the culture changing that Ryan wants here. So whatever position you deem that the first guy you're going to pick, toughness is a prerequisite for that role.
A lot of chatter going on. Let's touch on it quick around the league because it's going to impact the draft. Shedeur Sanders, I didn't think would be a top 10 pick. He might be. Giants are going to work him out on Thursday. Could it be just for show? Who knows? But then you got the New Orleans Saints situation with Derek Carr, and basically without him, if he is truly injured, there's no quarterback there. So Shedeur Sanders could wind up at number 9, who are the Pittsburgh Steelers going to have at quarterback? Is Aaron Rodgers still in play? I mean, it's pretty fascinating in a year without the big, heavy quarterback talk and who's going to stack the quarterbacks. It's still a big topic no matter what.
There's secondary conversations about every one of those teams you brought up. Brian Daboll says he doesn't like going to pro days because he'd rather see him in person. And then you got the New Orleans Saints, who just became aware that Carr maybe has a shoulder issue that keeps him out of the season. They have Spencer Rattler in the background. He's 5'11", 195. Shedeur Sanders is 6 foot 195. So it's basically the same template of quarterback. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't know, man. Right. I'm so confused by that situation. Unless they have an underground conversation already going.
Yeah, a rabbit they're going to pull out of the hat, right?
Yeah. And that could involve Aaron Rodgers. So, I mean, but I don't want to say it publicly, but
just leave it there, Tommy. Right. Leave it there. All right, one final question to wrap us up, a fun question, all right? The reason I bring it up, because I know you watched the Masters, and it was phenomenal. The finish was phenomenal. The drama was phenomenal. The fun question of the day for you, Big Tom. Now, you got to play with me here.
Okay.
Did you know there was photos taken that were put on X, which you don't see, but Ken Griffey Jr. was given a credential to be a photographer in the photographer pool at the Masters. He's taking it up as his retirement hobby, and he captured a beautiful couple of beautiful shots of Rory on his knees and winning his first Masters. The emotion was coming through. So my question to you, Tom Thayer, because you've retired once from football as a player, your retirement's still to come for maybe another 2 decades as an announcer. What is your retirement hobby? What will be Tom Thayer's retirement hobby?
I tell you what, if I had a fenced-in yard, I would be a dog rescuer.
Okay.
I would go to these different type of rescue housing for dogs, and if there was a dog that was in a cage for a year or that's just needs a passionate, loving existence, if I had a fenced-in yard, I would have 10 dogs because, in my life, that's what I've grown to know and love. And I would have some type of passion plan for dogs that need it.
I like it. I like it, Big Tom. That is part of your passion. No, there's not a day that does go by where you don't talk about your dogs or other dogs. All right, Tommy, good job. The Miller Lite Chicago Bears Draft Party, a celebration for everyone, and we want you to be a part of it. Enjoy an electric atmosphere, delicious food and drinks, an exclusive closeout sale, plenty of photo ops, and more. Buy tickets now at chicagobears.com/draft. Special thanks to our special guest, Field Yates from ESPN. For Tom Thayer, I'm Jeff Joniak. Thanks for listening, everybody. As always, please subscribe and join us on the Chicago Bears official app, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Big week ahead. Bear down, everybody.